I apologize for the late post on this Thursday. I typically would like to get them out sooner, but I had to do a lot of running around today. I'm in the middle of a remodel and in the middle of a move, so I got to this later than expected today, and my apologies. I also recognize that I've been busier than I normally will be, and part of that is because of the remodel and the move, and that's slowing down. And the other part is because we've been dealing with a student death on the campus where I teach face to face. So we've had a lot of student trauma and a lot of student grief to kind of discuss. So I've been involved in that and taking part in that. So I apologize. That's settling down, and it should be easier for me to get a hold of now. So I'm just looking at my notes here of what to discuss. Okay, so first order of business is to talk about the new content I've published. So I've published a new module that has basic writing conventions. So I've published some information on grammar, punctuation, MLA formatting, and also a bit about rhetoric. So the bit about rhetoric is not quite complete. I need to see what you did in the first analysis assignment, given the men explain things to me. So as soon as I see those assignments, I will know, have a better direction on where to go with the tutorial that I'll publish for that. So also more on rhetoric in a minute when I talk about Bruce Ballinger. Okay, and The Curious Writer, Chapter 1. Also, please be sure to watch or to go through the slides that I've published. There will be sentences at the end of both the grammar and the punctuation slides that you will need to fix and then submit as an assignment. And then also, if you watch the tutorial on MLA formatting, you will notice that I indicate a video will be coming later on how to research, how to decide if sources are credible, how to cite, and how to where to go for citation help, and then also where to go for substantial academic research. So more on that next week. Okay, next up, I would like to discuss a potential activism notebook idea. This doesn't require leaving the house at all. So also, I apparently have some kind of lag in my internet, so the sound is a little behind. I apologize. That's really awkward. Okay, so the activism idea. Some of you might have seen or heard about the article published by Oregon Public Radio that talks about Clark College and the way that specifically women of color have been treated and have felt in the workplace. So there is a lot of discussion about this. There's a lot of discussion in Clark. There's a lot of discussion in classes at Clark. There's a lot of discussion in Oregon and in Clark County. So please check that out if you would like an activity. And you can either respond or discuss that article. You might also, if you choose to use that as an activity in your weekly notebook, please do some more research on the who is now the former assistant director of inclusion at Clark. That activity is just like all of the activism activities, take a little bit of research. So please don't rely on exactly what you see or hear. Please also do some of your own research so you can give backstory and also so you can form an informed opinion and discussion. So just like we talked about last week, and also we read about again this week in the Curious Writer, the way to think about an argument or analysis is to think about an inquiry and finding the truth. And you can't do that if you come into an idea with a biased opinion and only look at your own perspective. In order to develop a strong argument for yourself, we have to look at multiple perspectives. So please do that. anytime you engage with the activism notebook. Also, I do have to say that is a very important piece of the class. So some of you have not been doing that, and I'm a little concerned for you in terms of your grade. So if that's you and you want a chance to do something different, please reach out to me and we'll talk about some ideas on what to do. But I'm checking them every week, so it's not as if you can backload all of your posts. I need to see them every week, not as a bunch together. Okay, next order of business is paragraphs, and I want to say two things about paragraphs. The first is in your weekly posts from the readings. I need to see a whole paragraph, one full paragraph. So that means what I would recommend is going to a word processing document, if it's Google Docs or Word or Pages, typing out a single spaced page that goes all the way down to the edge of the page, doesn't stop 3/4 of the way up, or doesn't stop 1/4, goes all the way down to the bottom. And then copy and paste that into the discussion. The second thing that I want to say about paragraphs is that I've posted, it has been posted, a paragraph formula. So please look at that and follow that as strictly as possible. And my rationale here is that if you can write a good solid paragraph, you can craft a longer sustained paper. So, of course, every paper is made up of paragraphs. So the better you are at writing paragraphs, the better you'll be at producing the final work. Also, I think sometimes we've taught students, especially in high school, that a paragraph should only be like 5 sentences, and I cannot stress the fallacy that is that discussion. So a paragraph should be as long as it needs to be. One paragraph describes or discusses one single idea or one single thesis. So it should be as long as necessary until that discussion is exhausted or until you would like to make a second point that pertains to the first idea, in which case you'll need a second paragraph for that. Also, we'll talk more about paragraph structure later, but let me also say that the first line of every paragraph is what we call the topic sentence, and the topic sentence serves as the thesis statement of the paragraph, and that should continuously refer back to the thesis statement of your original argument in the first paragraph of your introduction. Great, that's what I want to say right now. Okay, I've also, part of the new content, if I didn't say it before, is a tutorial that describes Canvas and how to access it and how to use it. It's a very brief overview. Now, if you still have questions, for instance, maybe you need to know how to submit an assignment or engage with specific elements of discussion, please feel free to let me know. I did not cover those in that tutorial, mainly because I wasn't sure if it was necessary. I didn't want to be too pedantic. So if that doesn't apply to you, please reach out to me and let me know. I'd be happy to post an additional video, no problem. You can either let me know in an email or in the course Q&A, either is fine. Okay, next up is the discussion of this week's Curious Writer. Sorry, I keep saying Curious Researcher because the author, Bruce Ballinger, has written a 3-part textbook series that one of them includes the Curious Researcher, Curious Writer, Curious Researcher, Curious Reader. So hopefully all of you read the reading tips. That's going to help you craft your weekly paragraphs of analysis based on the reading. Just a quick note about Bruce Ballinger for those of you who did not look up the author. Bruce Ballinger is an instructor at Boise State University in Boise, Idaho, which is where I happen to have done my undergraduate work. He was a professor of mine, but that's not why I've given you that chapter, although he is brilliant. I think that the chapter is written in a way, the whole book, in fact, the whole series, is written in an accessible way. And by that I mean he doesn't use, language that is hard to grapple with. It's very understandable. It's written for an audience that's wide and inclusive. And I think that's important when we're talking about composition and writing, because so many of us come, and this is kind of like what he talks about, so many of us come into a writing class or an English class with the idea that we're not good writers. And we think of writers as specific kind of people who do this one specific task well. And I want to push back against that a little bit to say writing is a very broad term, and there are many ways to do it, many genres, and even today in 2018, there's just so many different ways of writing. And I cannot dispel the myth that that writers are born enough. No person is born with the innate ability to write. Some of us have, an ability to articulate our thoughts and our feelings in a specific way, but even that is, even I might challenge that a little bit to say that can be learned and experienced over time. So no one is born a good writer. We all learn, and we all come into English class with specific knowledge and experience and backgrounds. And my job is to help you see yourself as a writer, because if you are in academia, which you are in a college setting, you are an academic, which means you should be kind of on the path to learn how to write, mostly because everyone in any discipline, in any career, will need to know how to communicate in specific ways based on that discipline and that career. So my job is to teach in an interdisciplinary way that helps you see the importance of writing. So the content and the readings and the assignments will hopefully help you write with many different thoughts in mind. So I've already kind of touched on this, but let me kind of come back to the idea of inquiry in terms of Ballinger's points and what he's trying to say here. So, and this even kind of builds, as it should, is designed to, builds on Vonnegut's idea that we each have an idea of who we are and what that authenticity looks like. And Ballinger is trying to say in this chapter, writing is a way to help us find that authentic piece. And the way that we think about writing and the way that we carry it out is the method of inquiry in which we locate that authenticity and then share it with the public or with others or with our audience. So I encourage you all to think about each piece of writing you produce this quarter as an inquiry into what you want, what you think, how you think, why you think, and why that's important to articulate in a written capacity. So, kind of building on that point is what we call metacognition. And when we think of the word meta, it means to rise above, to kind of come out of. So we have our own kind of physical body, and then meta means rising above that physical body to look down on ourselves, to examine the way we are thinking, specifically cognition, thinking. We can apply the same term to the way that we write. And so I would encourage us to think about a meta-narrative, thinking about the way we write as a way to become a writer. So kind of going back to the idea that writers are not born, they're created or they're made. That's how we become better writers. That's how we become better thinkers, better academics, is by thinking about the way we think, thinking about the way we write, thinking about the way we learn, So not just learning, not just writing, not just thinking, but thinking about the way we do those things helps us understand the reason why and its importance and how we can improve. So please continue to take those ideas with you as we progress over the quarter. Also, I also teach on the semester system, so I'm probably going to say semester a lot. Please just ignore that and pretend as if I said quarter. Sometimes I'll catch myself, but not always. Also, that was my cat Biscuit, who was just crying. She's a talker. Okay. Ballinger also talks about, and I cannot stress the importance enough, is motives and our motives for writing. And I think like just a general idea of, oh, here she comes, she's coming over here. Just a general idea of the motives we have. Would you like to say hi, Biscuit? That's her tail. Come on and say hi then. Okay. Okay. Let's see. There's Biscuit. Okay. So thinking about our motives, thinking about why we write, and sometimes the why we write is simply because we like to get an A in the class or because we've been instructed to do that. That's fine. Sometimes, though, for writers who have a difficulty starting or pushing through the assignment, we need to think about motives in a different way. And I'm definitely in this class of folks who have a hard time getting through an assignment or a writing project unless I'm invested. And this goes back to an idea that Vonnegut also discussed, and that's about personal investment. And for each one of us, personal investment is going to look a different way. Sometimes we're going to be interested in the content. Sometimes we're going to be interested in just the grade. And sometimes we have to find an individual motive that makes the piece of writing relevant to ourselves in any kind of minute capacity that's available. So I would encourage you, if you are someone who generally doesn't think any of the assignments are going to be beneficial to you, please think about that and why that is and how you can make it applicable to yourself, because I certainly have thought that. I have designed the class and each individual assignment in a way that I think is going to be beneficial to you as a human and as an academic. I don't kid myself that I'm going to create a lot of English majors in an English 101 class, although that's the ultimate goal. My real kind of goal as an instructor is to help you be the best student or worker or boss or construction worker or mechanic or nurse that you can be. So that's what that's my main goal. Okay, next up, Ballinger also talks about some strategies that look a lot like the rhetorical triangle. So one of the documents I've uploaded tonight is a discussion of the rhetorical devices, and next week in my video I'm going to explain those rhetorical devices, so pause on that for a moment, and then I will come back to Ballinger and his use of the rhetorical triangle. It won't make sense until I first describe the rhetorical triangle, so stay tuned for that. Let me pause here to talk a minute about the response paragraphs. If it wasn't clear already, I'm looking for a couple things. I'm looking for your analysis. I'd like you to think about what Ballinger is doing and why he's doing it and how he's doing it. So that means, one moment, let me just